Now, moving on to our first story. Thank you again, Marcus. Moving on to our first story. The RNC, the Republican National Committee, announces Pride Coalition partnership with Log Cabin Republicans ahead of the midterms. So, just reading from this article, the Republican National Committee announced its first ever RNC Pride Coalition over the weekend, partnering with the Log Cabin Republicans to invest and mobilize LGBTQ communities ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. The announcement came during the Log Cabin Republicans' Spirit of Lincoln Gala, which took place Saturday night, this is about 2 weeks ago, at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, and attracted a high-profile group of attendees, including former President Trump and former First Lady Melania Trump, who was the event's guest of honor, and other prominent Republicans, including former Acting Director of National Intelligence Rick Grinnell. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the first openly gay head of the, or first openly gay Director of National Intelligence. RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, who was given the Majority Maker Award, said that RNC is committed to working with the Log Cabin Republicans, the country's largest Republican organization dedicated to representing LGBTQ conservatives and allies, calling the organization a partner to fight for our country's future. The RNC is launching our first ever RNC Pride Coalition, she continued, adding that the RNC Pride will work alongside our other coalition groups to invest in communities and mobilize support for the upcoming midterms. Okay, that was a mouthful. Let's deconstruct this because I want to be very clear what we are for and against in this. So for starters, honestly, the right is the tolerant side. You see, cancel culture has run amok. And the right truly is the tolerant side. We don't just throw you out because you believe something different from us. And while it used to be that if you were gay, lesbian, whatever, you were shunned from conservative circles, it now has become mundane to talk about the fact that there are LBG in the party. I do not count the transgender movement because that is so unholy conservative that we don't even need to even attempt to put them within our ranks. Sorry, but it is what it is. We'll talk about that later. Before I go on, now that I've kind of set the stage, do you have anything to say about this, Marcus?
I think this kind of goes against what conservatives have been for a while.
Can you speak up just a little bit, buddy?
Yeah, yeah. I think this kind of goes against what we kind of believe as conservatives, as far as the LGBTQ bullcrap. But on that same token, how are you gonna get anybody from the left who supports that to realize, hey, we're not that bad, okay? You know, we're understanding people. You know, we're an understanding group. How are you gonna win over votes if you don't accept this? But at the same time, why do you accept something that it's a hard ground to play? Because on one note, we haven't the conservatives, we haven't believed in it. So why should we change our views for votes? But on the same token,
well,
what do you do?
For starters, anytime that the right tries to be like, oh, we'll give the left a little bit of this, it never really works out well. But honestly, so again, I'm going to reiterate my position. I don't care that they're gay, lesbian, or bi people who vote Republican. I think that's boring. It's been that way for years and years. What I do have a problem is starting a gay pride movement within the Republican Party. It is the wrong answer to the left's identity politics. It's the wrong answer to inclusiveness. As conservatism is and should be an ideology where we defend personal freedoms even if we do not agree with them, but by proclaiming that we are expressing pride as a strategy, that is a slope that leads to the worst in identity politics. Yes, I am making a slippery slope argument, but I think if you look at the history of the past 20 years, I don't think it's a illogical one. So identity politics, it keeps us from being Americans by dividing us along these arbitrary lines. It keeps us from having a single goal of making America better for everyone. And it instead becomes a game of what can we do to make it better for this group of people? What can we do to make it better for this group of people? And if that takes away from this group of people, how are we going to handle that? And I think that takes away from what we should be doing as a political party and as a conservative movement. Because it does become a zero-sum game that nobody can win. And that is true for much of politics in general. The debate should be what's best for the American people, not what's best for this group, this intersectional group versus that one. And I mean, do you agree with me that we already have enough divisiveness among the American people? We don't need it this clearly coming from both sides of the aisle, or am I way off base?
No, I think we have way too much separation in this country, honestly. And I believe that even just saying, talking about all the division, and I'm tired of the division. You know, it should just be us as a people.
It is very tiring, and it weakens us. You think at China?
Yeah,
we're talking about this. China just launched a hypersonic reentry system that's designed to avoid our missile defense. Like, how do we compete if we're worried about this versus they're worried about that?
What I hate is the left who claims to be so compassionate for everybody, against racism, against feminism. They use that as a power. You know, I don't care, you know, that you're what gender you are, what race you are. Just we're Americans, you know. So
right, and that's how it should be with the Conservative Party. Unless you're so far down one extremism that we just cannot, you know, endorse your views even tacitly.
I think for the most part that is what our party is, but of course you've got people that are so far down the rabbit hole it's not even funny. But I think for the most part, conservatives are more accepting than you believe. Now there's stuff we don't budge on, such as transgenders, but
we shouldn't budge on them for sure, because that is a ideology that kills 41% of its adherents.
It used to be a mental illness, legit, and I believe it still is in a sense. So I think now it's either a mental illness or you're trying to join a movement to be popular or to fit in at this point. But it used to be a mental illness, and I believe that if you're not doing it to fit in, it's a legit mental illness.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely not something that this country needs, in my opinion.
It's a dangerous trend, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.